Photoshop section of the class. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a look at a type of masking in Photoshop. Masking is a way of taking either a layer or multiple layers and sort of selectively making decisions on what is shown and what is hidden in terms of the information on that layer. So what we're going to look at today, this is going to be kind of pretty quick, just sort of a fun little thing for you guys to tinker with over the weekend here. And we're going to be taking a look at a different type of masking in our larger project next week when we get started on that. This is something called clipping mask. And what we do is we use at least 2 layers to overlay information from a top layer onto a layer beneath it. And what's shown depends on the visible pixels on that bottom layer. And that'll sort of make sense when I show you guys this. It works sort of, think of it like shining a projector with an image onto a screen that has some sort of shape. Ignore that. Okay, so first thing you guys need to do, you're going to need to grab at least 3 textures minimum. And what I recommend is you guys go to this website here up on screen called CG Textures. I've been using this for a number of years, and a lot of professionals in the entertainment industry use this as well, as well as a lot of artists. It does require that you sign up for a free account, and the free account is limited to 15 megabytes of download a day, which is actually quite a lot, unless you're an industry professional who needs a couple gigs worth of information for any given project. A free account on here will do just fine. And I've never received spam emails from these guys before. I've been using this site for maybe about 7 or 8 years, and it's a great resource. It's got lots and lots of information on here. Everything from fire, fabric, ink, ink spatters. They even have full 360-degree panoramas of skies. Everything from like signs you see on the street or information graphics, gauges, landscapes, you name it, they've got it. There's tons and tons and tons of information on here. So I definitely recommend this for grabbing your textures. Like I said, you'll need at least 3 of them. Okay, so you see here I've grabbed 3 textures that I'm going to plan on using. Alright, so for this project, what I'm going to ask you guys to do is to create a simple geometric shape. I'm going to create a cube. You guys could create, some sort of odd geometric shape that could or couldn't exist in real life, whatever you'd prefer to do for this. It's entirely up to you guys. But I'm just going to use a cube. So starting out here, I've got my background layer. I want to work on a new layer for this. I'm going to put my cube on its own layer. So I'm going to make a new layer. We're going to call this cube. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself a cube. And I'm going to do that in maybe 2 or 3 simple steps. So easiest way to do this in Photoshop, and we're not looking for anything that's really observing the laws of perspective or anything like that. So I'm just going to grab my rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to draw out a cube for myself. And what I'm doing is I'm holding down the Shift key, and you see when I hold Shift down, this snaps this into proportion so that way it's perfectly square. So I'm ending up with a square and not a rectangle. So I have my selection. I'm on my cube layer. Now what I'm going to do is grab my paint bucket tool, and you can fill this with any color you want. I'm going to go with kind of a neutral gray here. I'm going to fill that. Then I'm going to deselect. And what I'm left with is a layer with my cube on it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this so I can sort of allude to a three-dimensional object here. So I'm going to do free transform, which is under edit and free transform, or command T or control T. And again, I'm going to hover to the outside edge, click, start to rotate, and I'm going to hold down shift so it snaps to 45 degrees. And confirm that. So what I'm left with here is a diamond shape. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make this a little smaller to give myself some room. Again, I'm holding down shift so this stays in proportion. And now I'm going to make a duplicate of this layer so that way I have the bottom of my cube. And to do that, I'm just going to take this layer, drag it to the new layer icon, and it's going to make me a copy. I'm going to call this cube bottom. And then just with my move tool, going to move it down. And I'm going to arrange this so that way it is in fact on the bottom of my layer stack, as you can see here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this and change it a little bit here. So I'm on my cube bottom layer, and what I'm going to do is take this and just with my polygonal lasso tool, I'm going to choose one corner, go down to the next one, go over to the next one again, and just sort of complete this shape. So I'm on my cube bottom layer. I'm going to grab my paint bucket tool here, and I'm just going to fill this. Click a couple times, make sure it fills in. There were some little lines there that I didn't quite get to. And I'm going to deselect, which is under select and deselect, or command control D. And it's a little off, so I'm just going to come over here and clean it up just a little bit. It's better? Okay. So what I'm left with is this shape here. Okay, so I have three surfaces on this cube shown. So what I'm going to need to do is divide this bottom into two separate pieces, and this is part of what we're going to be getting into for our main project next week. So I've got my cube top right here, which if I turn visibility on and off you can see, and the cube bottom. Split the cube bottom into two different halves. So what I'm going to do is choose my marquee tool. I've selected cube bottom, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot for the center of this and split it right down the middle. And then once I've selected, I'm going to right click and I'm going to say layer via cut. So what this is going to do is this is going to cut the selected half of this cube bottom and paste it into a new layer. So it's going to cut it, make a new layer, and drop it into it. And you can see here, that's what I've got. Okay. So I'm going to rename this. Okay, so now we're ready for our textures. So I have 3 separate surfaces for my cube that I can deal with. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use a clipping mask to put a texture on each of these 3 different sides that we can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and grab my first texture, and I'm just going to drag it right to my document and let go. And it's going to drop it in. And what I'm going to do is just sort of position it so that way it's close to where I want it to be. You can resize and transform this if you need to. Some of you guys might have to go to File and Open the texture, select all of it, copy it, come back to your work document and paste it in. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to confirm that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is to apply this over just this one surface. You can see here the texture is positioned over top of the cube face that I want it to be applied to. So I'm going to right click on the texture layer, and then you'll see an option, Create Clipping Mask. So what that does is that drops it over just that face. And you can see here in my layers palette, I now have my texture. There's this small arrow that goes over and down. That means this is creating a clipping mask placed over just my cube bottom left. If I shut off my background, you can see here what used to be a layer that took up, a decent amount of space now applies itself just over the visible pixels of that layer underneath on cube bottom. So I'll show that to you guys again here. I'm going to do the next one. I'm going to put this over the top layer, top face of the cube. So drop it in. I'm going to position that texture over top of the layer that I want it to be clipped to. I'm going to right click, Create Clipping Mask. And then I'll do it once more for the other face. Right click the texture, create clipping mask. And what you have is, as a result, a cube with different textures applied to each face. And like I said, we're not looking for anything that observes the laws of perspective or anything like that. If that's something you guys want to go into and go ahead and try and do, by all means, go ahead and do that. You can make 1 or 2 cubes. You could do some sort of other geometric shape if you want. You could even do something where you take the circular marquee and make some spheres and apply a couple different textures to it, things like that. Another thing you can do is, and this applies to just about any sort of layer clipping mask. If I were to make a new clipping mask layer here, and this will come in handy for our next project, what I can do is, if I've got my fancy brush here, I can make a layer that's clipping mask over top of a shape that I've made, where I've got a nice clean edge. And what that allows me to do is on that clipping mask layer, come through and paint, draw, do all sorts of things that allow me to maintain that nice clean edge, but also go in and be artistic with it and change things around and get it looking the way I want. Okay, so if you guys have any questions about this, please let me know either through email or through the forums. And this will be kind of a quick, sit down, have a little bit of fun with it over the weekend type of exercise. This will be due, I think I'll have this be due on Monday. We're going to be taking a look at a few more things and then starting what'll be a much larger project, like a couple days, take us through probably till the weekend, next weekend. So, all right, guys, have fun. If you have questions, hit me up on the forums or an email. And I'm going to hopefully get some grading done this weekend too, so you guys will see grades from the first exercise and the second exercise up on Blackboard here pretty quick. So, all right, have fun.